apart from the alcohol content that's really high, what other compounds are responsible for this kind of taste, for the distinct aroma that, lambanog gives. So, wala tayo dun sa level na yon. We were stuck sa level na madali bang makalasing niya, mataas ba alcohol content? Oh, that must be good. Okay? But that's not the only criterion of quality.
Good afternoon po sa ating mga tagapakinig at tagapanood. Welcome back sa isa na namang episode ng Behind the Science Podcast. This podcast is co-presented by the UP Diliman College of Science and of course, the Marine and Earth Science Learning Hub. For today, we have a very special guest. She is currently an associate professor from the UP Institute of Chemistry, of course, from the College of Science, UP Diliman. And she obtained her PhD and MS degrees, bachelor's muna pala, from, of course, UP Diliman, and her PhD and MS at La Trobe University in Melbourne, Australia. So, ayan. So, without any further ado, let's all welcome Dr. Cynthia Grace Gregorio to our podcast. Good afternoon,
Hello,
ma'am.
good afternoon, magandang hapon. Okay, let me just correct that I got my PhD from La Trobe University, but I did not finish my MS because I was about to finish my MS when I got a scholarship to do my PhD in Australia. So I left UP to get into the PhD program straight away. So na-skip ko yung MS ko.
Okay, ma'am. Sorry, tinitingnan ko po kasi yung profile niyo dito sa
Ganun
Institute
ba?
of Chem.
I should
Ayun,
call their
apologies.
attention. No, that's okay. And thank you for having
Please.
me, by the way.
We're very much honored to have you as our guest po for today. So, for today po, we'll be talking about your paper entitled Towards the Establishment of Baseline Scientific Information based on the volatile organic compounds or VOCs of Philippine traditional alcoholic beverages. With the Christmas season approaching, napapanahon po ang topic natin kasi kabi-kabila na naman po ang ating mga Christmas parties and as Filipinos, alam niyo naman po,
Hindi
mahilig po
nawawala
tayo.
sa mga celebrations ng alcoholic beverages. And as Filipinos, it's always been part of our culture, no, when we celebrate, we have alcoholic beverages as part of our celebrations.
Ayun, oo nga po, ma'am. Parang hindi siya talaga mawawala.
Hindi, oh.
Pero, ma'am, before tayo pumunta dun sa mismong science and the paper, let's revisit your younger self.
Okay.
Yan. Let's go to the young and introduce you.
Okay.
Kailan niyo po na-realize that you would want to work in the science sector?
I think when I was in high school, I had an inkling, a very strong inkling that I will be in the science field. I thought, or I was pretty much involved in science investigations in my high school days, joining competitions up to the national level. And that gave me sort of a preparation for my endeavors in my field. So as young as high school, I knew I would flourish in the sciences. But when I applied for UP, I picked AB Political Science because I also wanted to be a lawyer.
Actually, ma'am, parang maganda yan, scientist ka na, tapos lawyer pa, if ever
Oo
mang
nga. But the universe had other plans for me. When I entered UP, I had a scholarship, and my scholarship dictated only or imposed only certain courses, in the sciences and allied fields. So among the sciences, I picked chemistry because that was where I was excelling when in high school. So I thought chemistry was easy, no? So I said, okay. Before I even went through my admission in UP, I went to the office of the registrar and asked for my program to be changed from AB Political Science to BS Chemistry. So that's how it happened.
very gusto niyo talaga, ma'am, yung sciences. And may I ask, ma'am, if okay lang po, ano po yung scholarship niyo nung entering UP?
It was a private scholarship. It's the Knights of Columbus scholarship, and I was fortunate to have landed a scholarship because my father wasn't a Knight of Columbus. It was one of the privileges given out to students who are not children of members of the Knights of Columbus. A very good friend in high school urged me to apply for the scholarship. She said, "Oh, I think they're opening it up to other students." So I just tried my luck, and lo and behold, I got it.
Ayun. So, ano naman pala ma'am, very well supported. Full scholarship to ma'am, no, if I'm not
Yeah, it was
mistaken.
a full scholarship.
So, from basic chem, general chemistry, correct me if I'm wrong, ma'am, ha? Your
Sure.
field is analytical chemistry, no
That's
po?
correct. Yeah, analytical
So,
chemistry is my field of expertise.
opo. So, paano po kayo na, paano niyo po napili? Kasi syempre, di ba, maraming fields po tayo sa chem.
Yeah.
So, paano niyo po napili?
Okay. When I graduated, I landed a job as a research assistant at NSRI under the supervision of the late Professor Rosenda G. Lorica. Her field was organic chemistry, and I was doing a lot of lab work synthesizing methyl esters. And I was doing that work for just a couple of months. And then she said, "Grace, there's a vacancy there's an item, a vacant item in the then Department of Chemistry for a research assistant. I want you to apply for it because I'm impressed with how you work in the lab." And that position was for a research assistant who will be doing different kinds of analytical determinations submitted to the Analytical Services Lab of the Department of Chem. So applied for that position and I got it. And that's how I started my foray in analytical chemistry.
Very, ano naman, ma'am, parang gusto talaga kayong dalhin ng universe into
Oo nga,
Anthem.
I would say it was like planned out for me. Although
And,
when I was doing my BS Chem degree, it was pretty hard on my part because chem is not a very easy subject, no. And I was struggling. And partly because I had really bad study habits. So there were times when at the end of the sem, realize ko, naku, ganito lang pala to. Kung inaral ko to, di sana mas mataas ang grade ko, no? And I said, when I finish my degree, I'm going to get out of UP, get a good job, and get rich. But that did not happen.
ayun. Pero ayun nga ma'am, the universe has other plans for you and with your current standing, I think okay naman yung kinalabasan. You
Oo
are very
naman,
much
yeah, of course. I cannot ask for anything more.
ayun. So thank you ma'am for sharing a bit of a background sa inyo pong kabataan and how you came about studying or in the field of analytical chemistry.
Sure.
Ngayon ma'am, puntahan na po natin yung paper ninyo in
Okay.
our segment called Kwento Mo Yan Eh. First question we always ask our guests, explain po yung paper in one sentence.
Okay, my paper is about determining what are the constituents in some representative Philippine traditional alcoholic beverages. So, and that entailed using an analytical technique for us to achieve that goal. And we were able to establish baseline information on four popular traditional beverages of the Philippines.
So with that, let's expound po dito. Paano po ninyo na-formulate yung topic na to? How did you arrive to this research?
Okay. In I think in 2014, I was browsing the internet and I stumbled upon a website of the Invino Analytical Ciencia. It's an organization that holds an international conference on wines. Okay, it's very specific wines, and it's a scientific conference in wines. And most of the participants come from Europe, from the States. No, I said, "Oh, this is very interesting." So I read about the background of the conference, and then my heart ached because I realized that in the Philippines, we don't have any scientific, or there's hardly any scientific studies on our own traditional alcoholic beverages. I browsed, extant literature on Philippine beverages, and there were very, very few studies, no? And most of them would be microbiological in nature. But since I'm an analytical chemist, I was looking in particular for, let's say, profile. Okay, what's the profile of our alcoholic beverages? What's in them? Apart from alcohol, what other organic compounds are there that contribute to the aroma of our traditional alcoholic beverages? I didn't find any. So that was my impetus on getting into this kind of study. So I started doing work which was personally funded, and I invited some very good and brilliant students in my analytical chemistry class to work with me. And I was able to recruit, I think, 4 to 5 students right away. And these students were just, I think, finishing their second year, and they were just turning third year. So I recall very vividly in 2015, I think, or 2014 December or 2015 December, Christmas party ng chemistry yon. Me and my students were in the gas chromatography room doing experiments, okay? And what we did was we sourced commercially available basi, tuba, lambanog, and tapuy, and establish the chemical profile of these beverages, no? So these were just representative of the very common traditional alcoholic beverages. So that's how it all started. And then that the results that we got from our initial studies, I was able to present that the following year in in vino scienza uh, in vino analytica scienza conference, and I was the only Asian there, and I was the only one who presented the work on a non-grape substrate.
Wow! Ang ano naman nun ma'am, parang ang nakaka-proud na parang kayo yung first na nag-present on an Asian alcoholic beverage.
Oh, and more than feeling pride, I felt very privileged to be in a community of scholars who are really into the studies of wine. Okay, and I was, being there, I realized how much research we need to put in for our own traditional alcoholic beverages. Kasi sa akin, yung study na yon, tapos na sila ron eh. Basic sa kanila yon eh. Sa kanila talagang mas advanced na yung studies nila. So I was sort of jealous in in a manner of speaking, but I used that to push, okay, my research endeavor on in this particular area more. So you mentioned my paper. That was the first paper that we came up with based on our studies. And after a few years, I got an email from Springer Nature, from from an editor of a book project, inviting me to write an article or a chapter on Philippine alcoholic beverages. So I gladly accepted the challenge, no, the invitation, and it came out, I think, middle of this year, and it's about all the studies that I found on Philippine alcoholic traditional beverages. And there are very few. Okay, there are very few. So lahat ng kaya kong makalap na information, hinanap ko talaga, no, para mailagay ko doon. And I accepted the invitation because I wanted to showcase Philippine traditional alcoholic beverages sa international community.
I think parang based on personal experience kapag may nakakainuman po na foreigners, sinasabi nila na parang yung mga local alcoholic beverages natin are usually a bit higher in terms of alcohol content than what they're used to daw po.
Yeah, like lambanog in particular is often compared to vodka due to its alcohol content, which is about 40%, and its physical appearance, which is crystal clear. But lambanog has a distinct aroma, no, that foreigners find very interesting. Sadly, we grew accustomed of lambanog, and we did not uh, give particular attention to ano kaya, oo nga pala, bakit ganito lasa ng labanog natin? What's in it? Okay? Apart from the alcohol content that's really high, what other compounds are responsible for this kind of taste, for the distinct aroma that, lambanog gives? So, wala tayo doon sa level na yon. We were stuck sa level na madali bang makalasing niya, mataas ba alcohol content? Oh, that must be good. Okay? But that's not the only criterion of quality.
Ayan. So nabanggit niyo na din naman ma'am yung criterion of quality. Ano po
Yeah.
ba yung mga criteria na tignan po ninyo for each of these four locally sourced alcoholic beverages?
Okay. Since we were using a gas chromatography technique, we looked at the major constituent, which is ethyl alcohol, and we identified selected minor constituents. No, these are constituents that not really high in concentration, but not really in trace amounts. No, that are also credited for the aroma of lambanog. And these are compounds like esters, fusel alcohols or higher alcohols. Okay. And also we looked at acetic acid content. No? So yun yung mga minor constituents that we paid attention to. And then we also picked a couple of lambanog samples and we subjected it to a much sensitive instrumental technique called gas chromatography mass spectrometry. And we were able to determine further the presence of other organic compounds, albeit in very, very small quantities. Despite the low concentrations or low occurrence of these organic compounds, I'm pretty sure that they, in some way or another, contribute to the overall aroma of lambanog.
Ayun. So sobrang interesting po ng topic ninyo kasi
Uh,
parang if you're a very curious teenager, kunyari, you're hailing from provinces wherein meron yung mga local natin, ma'am, na alcoholic beverages. Siguro mapapatanong ka bakit ganito yung amoy niya, anong meron sa kanya.
yes, I agree. I agree.
So, ano man parang, ano siya, ang vast nung pwede nating malaman na parang baselining pa lang tayo, wala pa tayo
That's
sa
right.
higher, ano, na higher research. So,
Yeah.
wala lang, ma'am, na-amaze lang din ako.
Gusto ko nga maka-acquire ng gas chromatograph mass spec, GC mass spec, because I can do much more, no? It's a more powerful technique, more sensitive. But, despite just working with the gas chromatograph, to do these studies and be able to publish it. And in fact, the project is still continuing, no? A particular aspect of the project is still continuing, and that's what my some of my undergraduate students are working on.
Ayan. So, usapang funding na tayo, ma'am. So, tuloy
Mm-mm.
na natin.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier po kanina na self-funded siya from the start. So,
Yes.
after the self-funding, ano pong nangyari?
Um,
Saan kayo nakakuha ng fund
so
po?
after the self-funding, of course with support from the Institute of Chemistry rin, no, paggamit ng mga consumables like mga gases, I applied for a small grant in the university from OVCRD. That's the open grant yan, ano. So that's a very small amount, not even half a million. But I was able to maximize that funding to do work on this particular project, no. And yung publication na binanggit mo na in Philippine Journal of Science was also achieved because of the funding from OVCRD.
So, that's very nice, ma'am, na ano pala,
Yeah.
from galing sa sarili niyong bulsa, meron naman pala kayong naging eventual funding for your
Yes,
research.
yes.
And I think that's very important lalo na po in terms of improving the research standard here sa Pilipinas in
Yeah.
general.
Funding is very important because no matter how brilliant your idea is, or no matter how important your research agenda is, if you don't have resources to push for it, it's very hard. It's very hard. That's why I always challenge my students when they come to me and ask me, Mom, can you be my thesis advisor, undergraduate thesis advisor? And I'd tell them, okay, why do you want to join my group? Apart from what I'm doing, what are your other interests? And then you have to do a matching, like, itong gusto mong gawin, anong resources ang available? Okay? So you have to be realistic. Okay? And you have to be able to work within your means.
Yes. Opo. And as Filipinos, alam naman po natin, maparaan po tayo.
Yes, you have to be creative. You have to be creative. And you have to, like, you have to position your research so that no matter how fundamental you think it is, ipoposition mo siya para makita ng ibang tao yung value niya.
So parang ano talaga ma'am, may marketing talaga din tayo when it
Yes,
comes to
yes,
research.
that's correct.
Ayun ma'am, since tapos na tayo sa funding, what other challenges po ba yung na-experience nyo while doing this research?
Well, number one, yung tagal ng procurement sometimes. You have to abide by the procurement law. You have to get quotations, 3 quotations, and pick the lowest. And sometimes the lowest bidder is not the best product at all. And then, of course, sometimes your instrument. At the time, I was using an old instrument pa. Sometimes your instrument will conk out, so you have to, have it repaired. Basically, ang malaking hindrance ay yung lack of funding eh. I recall spending also some amount of my personal money just to make sure that the work is completed. But if you're passionate about what you're doing, parang you look at it as it's your investment for your research, di ba?
Opo. Yeah, yun nga po eh. Parang you invest in something that you're, yun nga po, sabi niyo na po, passionate about. And,
Yes, yes.
and
It's like,
hindi
you
mo
like
siya,
a dress, kahit mahal yung damit, gusto mo siya, bibilin mo siya. 'Di ba? So parang ganun yung analogy sa research. You want to do this work, you really love doing it, gastusan mo, 'di ba?
opo. So, aside from, ito nga, aside po dun sa mga challenges nyo na to, may mga memorable po ba kayong experiences? Specifically, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, simulan ma'am natin sa good.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Ang ang ugly, I'll just start with the ugly. Ang ugly is when your experiments don't work. Okay? For some reason, ang pangit ng results. And, being an analytical chemist, ang regimen namin, ang rigor ng analytical chemistry ay dapat you have sufficient number of replicate determinations. So, and you will look at the dispersion of the results of your data, no? It has to be, low variation or low dispersion. And sometimes your experiments just don't cooperate. So you have to redo your experiments. And when you do an experiment like gas chromatographic experiment, it's not simply injecting or, running your sample using your GC machine. You have to do preliminary preparations. You have to make so many standard solutions, and you have to be very meticulous in preparing this. You have to make sure that all your glassware are clean. You have all, things like that. And pagka isang standard solution mo in your calibration curve ay pangit, hindi kami nasisihan yan. Uulitin namin yung buong calibration curve na yan. Diba? So, ganun yung rigor ng analytical work namin. I'd say that's the ugly part. No? But, who doesn't go through that kind of experience in the lab? Everyone. Diba? Um, and bad, wala naman masyadong bad eh. Because I guess when you really love what you're doing, you accept everything that you openly accept, whether it be good or bad. That's part of experimentation, diba? And the good, I think, I love working long hours in the lab. I like preparing all the solutions. Kahit ako yung supervisor, I do hands-on lab. Hindi ako yung turo-turo lang. I'm part of the preparation of the solutions because I wanted to be able to trace, no? Dapat may traceability. Sino gumawa nitong standards ito? Paano mo ginawa? Okay? So that's how I am as a supervisor, no? I am an active researcher in that sense. Okay? I do experimentation. Hindi ko pinauubaya lang sa estudyante ko sa RA ko yung mga experiments. I'm there with them. Okay. So I think that's the good, no? Na I don't know if that's micromanaging, but I have been receiving feedback from my former students that they really appreciated dati kong RA, they really appreciated the kind of training that they got from me because I'm always there. That hands-on daw ako talaga. And that's me eh.
Opo. Ano siya ma'am, very if I'm placing myself in a student's position, sobrang ano niya ma'am, sobrang inspiring niya na parang yung supervisor or yung thesis advisor nila is they're still quote unquote helping or visible pa rin sa lab in terms of doing lab work. So parang hindi sila ma'am, parang ang nagiging labas po, nagiging mas approachable kayo to their students and to your RAs. And that's a very admirable thing po for a project, a lab head.
Ah, oo, kasi ang prinsipyo ko, kung ano yung na-pick up ko na mga lab skills, gusto ko ma-transfer ko yon, maturo ko sa iba, di ba? At pag tinuro ko, gusto ko tama yung techniques na matututunan nila. Kasi dadalahin nila yon eh, hanggang tumanda sila eh.
Yes. Ayun. So, thank you very much, ma'am, for sharing some of your most memorable experiences. Let's put ourselves po in the position na malapit na or tapos na yung experimentation nyo or nag-konting tweaks na lang kayo in terms of data analysis. At what point po did you realize na sufficient na yung nagawa ninyo for a publication?
That's a difficult question because as a researcher, at times I would feel that hindi pa sapat. Pero sa ibang tao, tingin nila sapat na. Okay? So that's my problem eh. I'm very critical of myself. But at some point I really have to take one step back and take a look at, the entirety of things and read and decide, okay na to. Pwede na itong i-submit for publication. But of course, you only go for it when you feel you have enough data and you have enough results that you can justify.
Ayun. So, yun po yung importante, yung justification. Kasi
Yes.
minsan po, ang dami po nating data pero bakit natin kinuha? Bakit natin
Mm.
ginawa?
Mm-mm. Because it should be very clear eh. What did you want to do? Why are you doing it? How did you do it? What did you get out of it? And what did this all mean? Diba? Yon.
Ayun. So,
So yun yung mga basic questions ko na lagi kong sinasabi sa mga estudyante ko. When you write your thesis or your paper, ito yung mga tanong na kailangan yung sagutin.
nabanggit nyo po kanina that a version or an offspring of this paper is still continuing.
Yeah.
So, pakwento naman po anong trajectory nitong offspring na to and what are your plans moving forward?
Okay. In 2018, I got funding from DOST to look into lambanog derived from Nipa sap. Okay, and the study focused on three towns in Quezon, Infanta, Polillo group of islands, and Mauban, and Tayaba. Sorry, four towns. And I collaborated with Southern Luzon State University, Infanta campus, and DOST 4A. So the study was about determining the quality of lambanog derived from Nipa palm sap, and for consumer safety and sustainable industry. Okay, so that's the project, and that was just for 1 year. In fact, when I proposed it to DOST, it took a while for DOST to get back to me. It turned out there were two projects, one from SLSU and one from 4A, that were like aligned with what I wanted to do. So we met DOST, were put together in a meeting and asked, whether we three wanted to work as a team with me as the project leader. And I didn't know these people. And I said, okay, because, I really love the project. I said, okay, we share the same goal. Then let's work together. And, it was a fantastic time working with them, and we became really good friends. And the work we did was really well distributed, no? Like, Diliman was the one in charge in the hard R&D. DOST4A was the one doing the documentation of current practices of lambanog makers, and they and also spearheaded the conduct of seminars on sanitation and safety. And then SLSU was really fantastic in organizing the lambanog makers who would get on board the project. So we finished that in 1 year. The continuation of that project is in the pipeline kasi na-stop yun for a while, no? It's in the pipeline. In fact, we are meeting with SLSU, myself, SLSU, and the Technology Transfer Business Development Office of UP Diliman, the office that's going to help us put together a proposal so that we can continue work on the project.
That's good to hear, ma'am, na I think may follow through siya, and
Yes,
hindi
so
lang po siya basta follow through, but there are involved na may involvement po na state universities and of course yung ating local branch ng DOST.
yeah, yeah.
Kasi parang ayun nga po, technology transfer and of
No,
course for capacity building na rin.
yes, that's right. Because what we did was to did profiling of lambanog samples from these towns, and we looked at the major constituents and minor constituents, and we looked at how they're similar or how different they were, and we found out that because of non-standard production processes, the levels of these compounds vary widely. Okay? And so ngayon, ang gusto naming tingnan ay ano mangyayari kung halimbawa mag-introduce ng isang standard way of making lambanog, or how will the product change in terms of their baseline profile that we already acquired a few years ago when their process is improved. So, nandun na kami, papunta.
Ayun. So parang ano siya, ma'am, very helpful in terms of improving the
Oo.
industry.
Tsaka oo, yung mga stakeholders talaga ang ano namin, ang target namin, Because it's hard for lambanog makers to be at the mercy of government when government says, okay, stop mo na ang lambanog making kasi merong poisoning na nangyari. 'Di ba? Knee-jerk reaction ng government yun, Sa halip na tingnan maigi, suriin maigi, ano bang naging problema? Anong source ng problema? Yung production ba, or ano to, or adulteration? Hindi na separate ng ano yan regulatory bodies Adulteration ba to or sa production? Yun yung mga basic na concerns na dapat bigyan ng pansin, no?
Itatanong ko pa lang sana, ma'am, yung sa poisoning ng mga
Okay.
lambanog
Yeah.
before. So, yun nga, ma'am, medyo nasagot nyo naman, ma'am, sana tatanungin ko
Oo.
kung saan.
Also, I'd like to share with you, Keith, that when we did our study, all the lambanog samples that were produced by small and medium makers, these are naturally fermented products, okay? They contained methanol, very small amounts, and in fact, the methanol content were below the detection limit of our instrumental method. So, ibig sabihin, kung meron yan, pero below detection limit. Mababa yung detection limit namin. Parang 50 parts per million. Ang allowable level ng methanol, mga more than 50, more than 100 ppm So, when the poisoning incident happened and the suspected lambanog products were analyzed, they found out that these products contained very high levels of methanol, like about 10%. And it's impossible to have 10% methanol in lambanog unless it's adulterated. So added yon. And why did these people adulterate lambanog? Because lambanog lambanog making is a long process. You collect the sap, okay? You ferment it, okay? After fermentation, maybe after 3 to 4 days, you distill it off. After distillation, you age it for a while pa, okay? So, hindi mo pa agad mapagbibili yan. So, itong mga unscrupulous business people, they get lambanog, buy lambanog, add methanol para, kasi ang methanol, it also provides the same inebriation that ethyl alcohol provides. Okay, yung kalasingan, ganyan. Only, methanol is non-toxic, but once it enters the human body, it's converted into formic and formaldehyde and formic acid, which are toxic. Okay, that can cause blindness and death. Yun yung toxic. Maybe hindi alam ng itong mga unscrupulous business people na gano'n yung effect ng methanol. Ang ginagawa nila, nagbe-blend sila. 'Di ba? Sa konting lambanog, dagdagan ng methanol, dagdagan ng tubig, puwede na 'yan, lambanog na 'yan. But, easy money 'yon, 'di ba? Hindi ka maghihintay ng fermentation period, 'di ka magdi-distill. Bibili ka lang, mag-blend ka lang, pagbili mo na may pera ka na. But at the expense of the life of other people, which is pretty sad.
Yes, ma'am. And ayun nga po, since it's a very popular drink
Hmm,
in Southern Tagalog,
mhm.
marami talagang bumibili.
Yeah.
Malaki talaga ma'am ang kitaan. Malaki
Mm.
ang industry ng lambanog sa South.
Yeah. But even if lambanog has been around for men for centuries, even before the arrival of the colonizers, you will be surprised that it has not really taken off, even in the local market, di ba? Dapat makikita mo na yung mga maganda ang ang competition niya against mga foreign brands. But you see very very few lambanog products in shelves in wine shops or even in groceries, hindi ba? So mapapaisip ka bakit, di ba? Because we don't pay attention to the product that we produce, no? Parang, we have to ensure the quality of our lambanog. And how they do that? You use science, di ba? You use science and you provide support to the lambanog makers, small and medium lambanog makers, so that you support the livelihood in the industry. And, you improve the level of craftsmanship of these lambanog makers. Why am I saying this? Because lambanog is part of our cultural heritage already. Diba? Ergo, we should make an investment. Diba? We should invest.
Yes. And that I think that goes to ano din po, yung other alcoholic beverages
That's
natin like
correct.
basi.
Yeah, yeah. Basi, tapuy, tuba. Yeah. In fact, I have a couple of students who are doing studies on basi.
Ooh. So, very nice. May ano naman pala po. As in, continuously, meron po
Mm.
kayo
Yeah. Yan,
students that
personally
are
funded yan.
so hopefully ma'am in the future magkaroon tayo ng more larger funding. May funding
Yes.
agency tayo para at least ma'am ma-continue natin to kasi I think more than the science behind it, it's like preserving our identity and culture na rin po kasi.
Yes, yes. Safeguarding a part of your cultural heritage. Okay. And like Basi has a big cultural significance in the North, iba? Nagkaroon pa ng Basi Revolt nung Spanish period, okay? So, hindi mo madedetach talaga yung mga traditional alcoholic beverages na yan sa kultura natin, sa history natin. Eh.
Ayun. So, thank you very much ma'am for indulging
Of
our
course.
and our curiosities regarding your research paper. Before we let you go, ma'am, we would like to ask an advice from you to our listeners, mga aspiring researchers. Ano yung advice na mabibigay niyo, ma'am, sa kanila?
My advice is pursue your passion, okay, for research. And if it would mean sometimes struggling for funding, don't give up. Be creative. You will always find a way, okay, to do to pursue your passion for research. Just make sure you find your niche and stick to that.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. May additional po tayong question, phone-in question. Ano daw po ang tips para hindi agad malasing?
Ang tips para hindi agad malasing, well, you have to make sure before you drink with enough food in your stomach. No, don't drink on an empty stomach because your gut will immediately absorb alcohol. Okay? Yun ang masasabi ko, and eat high fat food, no, para mako-coat yung microvilli mo. Okay? At hindi agad ma-absorb ang alcohol. But, inevitably, kung ano man yung alcohol na in-ingest mo, ma-absorb at ma-absorb ng katawan mo. Only na ano lang, na protract lang yung absorption, di ba? As compared to you drink alcohol on an empty stomach, lasing ka agad nun, di ba? And also, drink in moderation. Drink in moderation. Tamang pacing lang. Tamang pacing lang. Lalo na when you're drinking high alcohol content beverages.
And of course, ma'am, syempre dapat legal age.
Of course. And you have to hydrate. After a drinking spree, make sure you hydrate well.
Ayan po, sa mga listeners natin na magki-Christmas party,
Yes.
hydrate. Hydrate tayo. Okay, ma'am. So, do you have anything to promote po ba? Or to advertise?
What I wanted to promote, well, I wanted to see more researchers to use just science in helping our countrymen. Okay, because science is so powerful, and for us researchers, it's already a gift that we're able to practice our science. But please, let's not forget that Philippines is a developing country, and the kind of science that we will do, sana can help alleviate the predicament or the circumstance of our countrymen. I'm not saying na, ibuhos nyo rin yung efforts nyo, no? I mean, do part of your science, sana i-prioritize nyo rin yung countrymen natin.
Let's all pay it forward to
Yes.
our
Science for the
countrymen.
people.
Yes, science for the people.
Mm-mm.
Again, thank you very much, Ma'am Grace, for joining us in our podcast. And to our listeners, I hope you really learned a lot. And ang ating main takeaway today, drink in moderation.
Yes. Thank you, Keith, for having me. I'm really humbled to have been invited to your podcast. And it's been a fantastic time with you. I enjoyed our session today.
Thank you very much, Ma'am. It's both an honor and a pleasure to be talking to you kahit na online and hopefully, Ma'am, in person.
Yes, looking forward. And have a happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas din po and happy holidays po sa lahat ng nakikinig.